Yeah, there was somebody that did an event on the community with our community members on Thrivivors, and they said you can get healing burnout. And I thought that was really interesting. I'd never heard that before, but those were the actual words that she used. That sometimes you're so anxious to heal and you're trying all these things that you can get, healing burnout. And I thought, oh, that's really interesting. It took me a long time because I would try something and I didn't really know. It's today, it feels like there's been so much, clinical and scientific research on so many ways to maybe heal in different, time periods of your life because I'm sort of the opinion and you guys can correct me if this is wrong, but it feels like what I was trying to heal from in my 20s was different from what I needed after I had a child and noticed other things that came up. It was like the stages of life that I was going through. And when I was getting married and divorced the first time, that was different than the third time. It was like I knew I was still searching for things that really hadn't even been identified because most of my, kind of awakening and going, there's something here that I've got to either see somebody and talk to them. I got to read another self-help book. I got to go have a massage. I need, there were just things that would come up and I would think maybe this will help, maybe calm me down or make me feel a little more secure and safe, which is a big, big thing. I mean, into my early 30s, I was still looking behind the seat of my car, under my car. I'd sometimes walk all the way around my car, and I had never been like somebody out of the blue in a parking lot didn't but I had been, abused in a motorhome, in a vehicle, over and over again, and there was something about being in a vehicle of any kind that just even though I knew it wasn't real, I couldn't help myself. So,
No, 'cause
I just
it's
remember
not
throughout
your
my
logical
30s, it was
body
that.
reacting, it's your emotional body reacting, and then it's sense of safety, right? Like, now, not just this one specific thing is unsafe, it can be all things like that are unsafe. You can do a lot of
Mhm.
association. And so then and that's what the nervous system is built to do, by the way. It's not just, "Hey, there's a bear today." Well, we saw a bear yesterday, so now there may be 20 bears. We've gotta make sure now that we watch out for bears because there could be bears in this area. Since we saw one, we may see many. And it's built to calm, right, for dangers. It's built but then
Mhm.
that hyperactive and then that hyperactivity in that nervous system is exhausting because it's so hypervigilant that the nervous system is essentially sitting here burning hot, hot, hot and going, danger, 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 danger. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? And so helping people just even start to calm that down. They're like reclaiming even just some baseline energy. You think it's someone burning a fire at a level one, it's a simmer. That's not energy intensive, but if someone's burning a fire inside of themselves, seven, eight,
Yeah.
nine, level 10, they're, the fact that they're getting up and being able to do the basics is a really big deal.
Yeah. Yeah, I would imagine that when somebody said recently on another podcast that I was doing, they were like, it's almost that people think if you've kind of faced it, you know what it is, then that's gonna turn everything down. But in a lot of ways, what you're facing is something from the past that was so scary then, and now facing it in the present should be a different experience of letting go, and yet a lot of times that doesn't happen, and I'm like, I wonder why. Do you have any like, when you have people that come in and let's say that maybe they had a sexual assault and now they're dealing with addiction or something, so when they come in to mend and they want, they want that healing, they're anxious to, move forward, but it's like this other thing now has a hold of them, and it's like those mini pinballs that are going through the body. So now I had one pinball, but now I've layered it with another one that's wreaking havoc on my body. So which one do you start with? I'm just curious. Do you have a way of
It's
deciding let's deal with this one or what?
Yeah, I think it's an attunement. Yeah. So there's an attunement that happens and you can overdo like you said, somatic work. There are times where people keep going, or even when I do brain spotting, they're like, I'm a brain spot every week. I said, you're not. Like, we're gonna only go to the degree that we keep that window of tolerance open. But if you're going to open somebody up in their past that's been traumatic, first of all, the therapeutic relationship and the connection, there has to be a safe connection established. Like, if I'm going to walk down this road with you, you need to feel safe with who you're with because that safety connection, it's an attachment. Attachments, we're beings wired for connection. We need to know that when we connect with somebody, especially with our most scariest sacred vulnerabilities, that we're safe with them, right? So that therapeutic connection needs to be established. I'll never just jump into doing trauma work with somebody until I feel like we've connected and created that therapeutic safe relationship. And then it's the attunement to where are your thresholds, right? And what are your coping mechanisms? Because if we start viewing your past, we need to know that you can anchor in the present with some good solid coping mechanisms. And sometimes before I can even then go into their trauma, we've got to practice and teach coping mechanisms so that sometimes when we view that stuff, there's a way to anchor into the present and going, I'm safe. I wasn't safe then, but I'm safe today. I'm with a safe person. And that's why also environment, like I'll play binaural beats. My office is very soothing. There's weighted blankets. There's just things to go, I'm safe, I'm okay. So even though I'm looking at my past, I'm grounded here in the present, and I'm having someone very safe hold a space for me while I'm in the present. And then we can do some really good trauma work. But even then, eventually the window of tolerance closes. Like I can tell it's like, okay, we're done for today. And we're not going to revisit this until we get that window of tolerance back open. And that could be weeks from now. And in between that time, we do other things, right? We keep doing coping mechanisms and grounding in the present. And you can also do some unwinding and helping the nervous system calm down because you really do have to reclaim that safety in the nervous system. It's so used to running hot that it's like, hey, we don't always have to run at a 10 anymore. Let's try and get you down to an 8. Let's try and get you down to a 6 now. And then teaching people to
Yeah,
go,
it's like you're gonna
oh, this
burn
is
your
what a
engine out.
feels like. Yes. Yes. And
So
giving
they
them,
go, "Ooh, this is what a 6 feels like," and they like that.
yes, like, oh, I can
Yep.
actually operate here. And then that's their new baseline. And then we can get them from a 6 to a 2. It doesn't mean they won't spike sometimes back up to an 8, but then they start to learn how to get themselves back down and not live in that fight or flight, freeze, fawn state.
So is it a matter of, like, yeah, sometimes you're gonna spike, but those coping mechanisms, those are things that you're also talking about or teaching as you go along? And could you, like, share a couple of those that seem to be really good, either one of you, like, that you're like, "This is one that people should work towards or use when they are starting to, when the engine's starting to run so hot that they might burn out," or whatever? How do you do that? What's a coping
Laura,
mechanism that you could use?
I think Laura is a great with skill development and coping. So I can share some when people are with me because I use a lot of them. But I think it'd be great too to hear some when they're
Well,
not with a therapist.
I will say, and this
Yeah.
will sound so, like, oh, that can't possibly help. But something that I think gets so overlooked is just like mindfulness, slowing down and like taking a deep breath. I mean, when we're in that fight or flight or we get triggered, we're operating at this, we're at 100. And just taking that time to like take a deep breath and slow it down. Some people have like a very specific mindfulness practice, but for me, even mindfulness is on the drive home from work. I'm just not going to listen. I'm not even going to listen to the radio or music at all. I'm just going to sit with myself. It really helps me kind of understand, like, okay, where's my baseline at? Am I here or am I, kind of regulated? I'm here. So I do think that even just that intentional, like, deep breath, just kind of taking a step back out of wherever you're at, if the environment's chaotic, even just taking go in the other room, go outside, just taking the time to really try and reconnect. To me, that's one that's often overlooked. I mean, I've got 4 teenagers, and when they're having some of their struggles, and I'm like, hey, just slow down a minute. Like, we can check in, we can talk about whatever's going on, but first, let's like, really intentionally take a few deep breaths, and they're looking at me like, "Mom's crazy, she doesn't know what she's talking about." But then sure enough, even if I can get them to do it for 2 or 3 minutes, it's like, "Oh, this doesn't seem so, like, here. This seems more manageable now."
Mhm.
So that's, like, my favorite go-to. I don't know if you wanted to kinda talk about more of, like, the tapping or
Breathing is
I
such a
love
huge
that.
breathing is a hack into the nervous system and it's free. And using breathing is a way what I've been using this term lately to wring out the sponge.
Mhm.
If you can, as you breathe in, really do a it's like you're wringing out the sponge, you're wringing out that energy, you're pushing it out, and you're really bringing cognizant thought to I am pushing this stress out of my body.
Mhm.
And I'm gonna and then you're also as you're doing deep breathing, ironically, you're bringing more oxygen to the brain, so then you can get into some more clear thinking as you get kind of swim through your emotional body and get things to calm down. So breathing is something that I tell all my clients to do, whether they're with me or not. And we do a lot of somatic breath work when they're with me.